Hello guys, so welcome back. We are learning about macro preprocessors. So we'll start, like we have already seen what is a macro, how it is defined, how it is expanded, and we have also seen the one-pass macro processor algorithm and its associated data structures. So let us move ahead and go on and learn the next topic in this module, which is machine independent macro processor features. So there are mainly four independent features. We have concatenation of macro parameters, generation of unique labels, conditional macro expansion, and keyword macro parameters. We'll start with the first one, concatenation of macro parameters. Now this is a fairly simple concept. Here, most of the macro parameters, microprocessors allows parameters to be concatenated with other string. So this is all about concatenation of strings. Suppose if the user wants to generate a set of variables like xa1, xa2, xa3, etc., or if he wants to generate variables like xb1, xb2, xb3 in the program. Okay, so we can give a or b as can be given as a argument when you expand the macro. So how you can do that is, in the macro body which is given, suppose if the parameter is id, you have to define the parameter in such a way that the parameter normally starts with ampersand, right? The parameter has to start with ampersand, and that denotes the starting symbol of macro parameters, followed by you have to use a concatenation operator, which is a arrow. So this means when you have a macro expansion and when you pass the argument a or b, wherever you have the id value defined, it will be replaced with the string a or b depending upon the invocation. So let us try to understand this more with an example. With this example, you will easily understand what this concatenation is. So here, see, look at this. We have a macro defined, which is sum. Sum is the name of the macro. And here you can see the parameter is id. Okay. And in the macro definition, we have many symbols where you have x ampersand id arrow 1 means this whatever is the value of id which is getting passed when you invoke the macro, that will be replaced. So id will be replaced with the with that argument. So let us look at an example. Suppose if you are invoking the macro in such a way. So you have sum followed by a is a argument which is passed to the parameter id. So when you expand the macro, you have a will be replaced wherever you have id coming. That's how you generate the variable xa1, xa2, and so on. So here you can see in the expansion, the concatenation operator doesn't come in the expansion. When it's expanded, it only replaces id with the parameter with the argument being passed. Similarly, if you have another macro invocation, sum beta, beta is being passed as argument to the parameter id. So wherever you have id coming, there it will be replaced with the argument beta, x beta 1, x beta 2, x beta 3, x beta s, and so on. Okay. So this concatenation is made possible by macro processor with the help of the concatenation operator, which is an arrow. So this is how macro does concatenation. So this is a simple concept, right? Now let us look at the next feature, which is a generation of unique labels. So consider this example. First of all, I'll show you. I'll give you an idea of what this generation of unique label is with this example. This is our program. Here we have copy start 0, and it starts with a macro. Okay, so the name of the macro is, you have move. Move is the name of the macro, and this is your macro definition, right? Here you have the macro definition starting from clear till macro end. Then it starts with the first statement, LDT. So this is the first statement in your program. So when you expand this, when you convert this assembly language to, when macro processor processes this entire program, the first statement that will be loaded will be your this statement, right? First LET 0. So here you can see in memory you have first LET 0. Then the immediate next statement is a macro expansion. So you have move where str1, str2 is passed as argument 4. str1, str2 and 4 are passed as argument. So here these values will be passed as argument, and wherever you have INS-TR coming, there it will be replaced with str1, and wherever you have out str coming, it will be replaced with str2, and wherever you have str length coming, it will be replaced with 4. So here you can see the expansion in which is loaded to memory in such a way. So the last statement is JLT. So till here you have the first macro being expanded. So here you can see 4 is being passed, and you have str1 and str2 being passed as argument. And in here, the point to be taken into consideration is this label loop. Okay, so this loop is defined in the address 000D. So the address of loop variable is 000D. Now again, after the macro is expanded, it will proceed with the remaining instruction. So the remaining 3 instructions is added to memory. So you have the remaining 3 instructions being added to memory. Then again, you have a macro expansion happening with the values str3, str4 and 10 being passed. So this is a command statement. You remember, first command will be added to the output file and the macro will be expanded, where the parameters will be replaced with the new arguments str3, 4 and 10. So the last statement is JLT, and you have the end of the program. So now here again you can see that when macro is expanded, you have this variable loop which is defined in a new location 0029. So this is a point to be considered in this expansion. Here you can see that when assembler converts, so macro doesn't have to bother about this loop, because macro just directly expands whatever code you have in the program into its expanded statements, right? But the problem arises when the assembler comes into role. So you remember, assembler will first try to convert this assembly language. When it tries to convert the assembly language, the first one of the initial steps is it will create a symbol table. So in the symbol table, you have the labels first, right? First will be added with the address 0. Then loop will be added with the address 000D. Then again, you have the same variable loop, which points to another address 0029. So this is a duplicate label. So you remember, in symbol table, you cannot add the same label twice. Duplicate label names cannot be added to symbol table because it creates an ambiguity, right? Because in the program, you have a loop statement coming. Loop is referred in this statement. Loop is referred in this statement also. So you have two, if you have two addresses, then to which address does it point to? That creates an ambiguity. So such a symbol table cannot be constructed. That is an issue, that is a problem with such a macro expansion. So why did this problem arise in the first place? Because macro was invoked twice and expanded. When 2 times, if the macro is expanded only once, then we do not have this problem. But if the macro gets expanded more than once, we'll have this problem. So confusion will arise when generating the symbol table. As shown in the previous slide, you'll have 2 labels, duplicate entries with 2 addresses, which is not allowed in symbol table. So we have to come up with a solution for the naming convention for labels. So the naming convention for labels has to be modified in some way. You cannot have these 2 labels defined in the same way. So how will you solve this problem? There are 2 solutions to this problem. The first solution is macros are expanded using relative addressing. Okay, relative addressing. So such type of expansion you would have already seen in the examples that came before in the previous two sessions or the topics which you have learned. You might have seen statements like star minus 11, and another statement you have here again star minus 11. So this is just a number. Okay, star minus, it can be any number. So just compare these two programs. This is how the macro is expanded. In the first case, this is our previous example where we have the loop variable, right? And you have two loop variables, and those addresses are also given. And you have loop being referred in the address 0015. So consider that same statement. In the same statement, rather than using a label, they have used a relative addressing format. So what it means is star means from the current position minus 11. So from the current position, minus denotes you have to jump back 11 bytes. That is the meaning. Okay, jump back 11 bytes. So here you have this is for this instruction, it is a format 2 instruction. So you have 2 bytes. So here we have like 3 bytes, right? And here again you have 3 bytes, and including this instruction you have 3 bytes. So if you add all these together, you will get 11. So you have to jump back 11 bytes. That is the meaning. So if you subtract the 0015 with 11, you will be getting 000 D. So from the current location pointer, not 0015, actually the current location pointer, it actually points to 0018. Because star means it points to the current LOC CTR. So in this instruction, LOC CTR would be already pointing to the next instruction. So that is why you have to jump these many bytes back in order to go to the current location. That is using relative addressing. So the same way you can see the expansion written here also. Since it's the same expansion, you have to jump back 11 bytes only in order to go back to your instruction that points to this loop address. So depending upon the number of bytes, if you have to move forward, you have to denote it with a plus symbol. If you have to jump backward, you have to denote it with a minus symbol. It denotes the number of bytes to jump back or forward, depending upon the symbol. So here you have eliminated the loop variable and you have come up with a solution that will avoid that ambiguity. So in this case, there are no symbols to be, here there are no symbols to be generated with regard to your macro expansion. In macro expansion, there are no symbols, hence no ambiguity you have. So I hope this solution is clear. Macro expansion using relative addressing. But there are some disadvantages with this type of notation, mainly because it is not that convenient. You have to count the number of bytes to jump back and forward, and there is a possibility that you may come up with an error. Even when I was also calculating first, I made a mistake, right? I did not take it in the correct way. So there is a possibility that you will fall, you may not calculate the bytes correctly. So all these becomes a disadvantage to your relative addressing solution. So when the macro, if it is invoked only once, then relative addressing is fine. But if it gets invoked multiple times, the use of relative address is prone to error, and it is inconvenient, and it is difficult to read also. You have to calculate, calculate how much is the number of bytes every time you have a star followed by a plus or minus symbol followed by the number comes. So this is the disadvantage with such type of solution. So first of all, why are we learning this solution? Because you have ambiguity in the loop. When you are generating the symbol table, you have ambiguity in the variables when you are generating the symbol table. So one solution they have suggested with the help of relative addressing. Now, next we'll look at a better solution, which is a next macro independent feature, unique labeling. Okay, So this is our second independent feature. The first feature we have already learned, concatenation of parameters. The next feature is unique labeling. So macro gives you a way in which you can uniquely name the labels. That is unique labeling. So how does macro achieve that? The process to be followed is every label that you have in the macro must precede with a dollar symbol. Okay, this is the first highlight. Every label that you have in your macro must precede with a dollar symbol. And every time the macro is invoked, wherever a label comes after the dollar symbol, that label is replaced with something called as two alphanumeric characters XX. Okay, say suppose if you have dollar followed by loop. Okay, so this dollar, in between this dollar and loop, you have two new alphanumeric characters added. What are those two new alphanumeric characters? It starts with AA, AB, AC, and so on. So till you have AZ, okay, till AZ. So suppose if you are invoking the macro, and in the macro definition, you have a label which is loop. So loop is a variable. So assuming the loop is invoked thrice, in those three locations, the name of the label will be replaced with $AA loop. Okay, the first time macro is invoked, the name loop is replaced with $AA loop. And the second time it is invoked, it will be replaced with $AB loop. Third time it is invoked, it will be replaced with $AC loop. So no matter how many times you invoke the macro, or no, how many times you invoke the macro, you have the range of the variables. Okay, the range of uniqueness that you can achieve is very high, because for if it is invoked 27 times also, you have AZ. Now suppose if it is invoked for more than that, it will again start with the next combination of BA. So you have BA, BB, BC, and so on. Okay. So you have this much number of expansions possible, as many as this much number of expansions possible with a 2-character alphanumeric counter. Now let us try to understand this in a better way. Here you can see, suppose if you have a label loop, in the first call, this loop will be replaced with $AA loop. So this is the first call. And the second call, loop is replaced with $AB loop. Okay, so that is what is given. In order to make unique label for each invocation of the macro, you have to replace dollar with $XX. So I'll show you an example here. Here we have this is a macro. So inside macro, you only have a single label, $loop, and which is referred in the program at this point. So when you expand this macro, where are you expanding it? You have the first invocation coming after LDT statement. So this is a first invocation. Yes. So in that first invocation, when the body of the loop is expanded, so this is a body of the loop. So when this is expanded, wherever you have $loop coming, there it will be replaced with, since it is a first time invocation, dollar will be replaced with $AA followed by loop. And in the program also, wherever you have $loop, there also it will be uniquely labeled as $AA loop. Now again you have the next statements following, and which follows with another macro invocation. So this is a second macro invocation which we have. Yes. So this is a second macro invocation, and it will be replaced with the body of the macro. So again you have the loop variable coming. So wherever you have $loop coming, since this is a second invocation, it will be replaced with $AB loop. And in the body also, it will be replaced with $AB loop. Now again, if you have one more invocation coming there, it will be replaced with $AC loop. So with this scheme, macro generates unique labels for every label in the macro body. Now, if you try to construct the symbol table, okay, so can you guess what will be there in the symbol table? In the symbol table, you have first, you'll have first, right, with this address, and next you have AA loop followed by this address, and you have AB loop followed by the address 0029. This will be your symbol table. So you can see that in the previous case, the symbol table, we had ambiguity because there were two duplicate labels. But with the help of this macro feature, unique labeling feature, we have different labels for the which denotes the same label within a macro body. So this is how unique labeling is achieved. I hope this concept is clear to you. We have one more example in this set which is given. So you have the macro RDBuff where there are two labels. So here you can see there are two labels, okay, loop and exit. In the previous case, we had only one label. Here we have two labels. And the macro, this loop is used at this point, and exit loop is used in two places, and exit is used in one place. So here when you invoke the macro, suppose if you have a macro expansion RDBuff, this is a macro expansion, F1 buffer and length are passed. So the first time macro is expanded, here you can see that loop is replaced with $AA loop. Now look at exit. Okay, do you see anything specific here? In exit also, it is dollar is replaced with $AA only. Why so? Why not $AB? Is it wrong? Whatever is written here, $AA, is it wrong? No, it is not wrong because it is a different label. Exit is different from loop. So for the first occurrence of exit, dollar will be replaced with $AA only. In the next macro invocation, here $AA loop will be replaced with $AB loop, and AA exit will be replaced with AB exit. So do not get confused that if $AA is used in a loop, in a label, then for the next label that you have, don't think that you have to use $AB. That is not how it is being implemented. For every label, you have to start with $AA only. Okay, so I hope that unique labeling concept is clear. Now we'll move ahead with the next feature, which is conditional macro expansion. So macro gives you conditional statements. Okay, macro gives you ways in which you can represent conditional statements. For that, you have two macro processor directives: if, else, endif, and set. So please note that these two are macro processor directives. We have learned many assembler directives, right? Similar to that, this if, else, endif, and set, there are two conditional statements which are macro processor directives. And apart from that, macro also gives you macro time variables. Okay, so any symbol that begins with the character ampersand and which is not a macro parameter, that you call it as a macro time variable. So you might be knowing by now that every parameter in the macro prototype will start with an ampersand. So in your macro body, if you have any label or any symbol that starts with the character ampersand, then that you call it as a macro time variable. So by default, they are initialized to the value 0. By default. So if you want to use such variables, by default, it will be initialized to 0. You can even change their value with the macro processor directive set. So for example, if you have a very symbol EORCK, okay, EORCK, here you can see it starts with ampersand. So that means it is a macro time variable. So using the processor directive set, you can change the value of that time variable to 1. In this example, it is set to 1. Initially, by default, it is initialized to 0. And in the program, you can manually change it with set processor directive. So we'll try to understand this better with examples. Okay, so consider this case. Here a macro is being defined, rdbuf. Okay, now this is a very simple program only. Don't panic like seeing a bigger one. It's basically simple. So it starts with the macro definition. You have rdbuf macro followed by the parameters. So these are the parameters in the macro. So this is the entire body of macro. Here you can see the end of the macro denoted as ment. So first let us try to understand what all are the statements inside your macro definition. So all these 4 blocks are basically nothing but they are loop statements. Loop as in conditional statements, not loop, conditional statements. So first conditional statements, you can see here it starts with if and end if. The syntax is if you don't have any else condition. It's similar to your high level language that you have learned. If, else, else if, that high level in C programming and all you have learned, right? Here also you have a similar structure. It starts with if, and if you have else condition coming, you have in between else statements, and it ends with end if. So look at the structure. Here you can see you have if, then there is no else condition. So the condition is being written in bracket. Just a second. Okay, so the condition is given inside bracket. You have if bracket followed by ampersand EOR. So EOR is one of the parameter being passed. So if it is NE means not equal to. So here you have equal to EQ, EQ, EQ. So this is how you will write a condition. The parameter, whatever parameter you want to compare, the condition followed by with what value do you want to compare. So here it checks if it is not equal to null. Within single quotes it's given. That means it's not equal to null. So if this is true, then what are you doing? Here you can see that there you have a parameter which is defined with ampersand, ampersand EORCK. So here it is not any of the parameters being passed in the macro. So if you have a symbol defined in your macro that starts with ampersand, which is not a parameter passed in the macro, then that will be treated as a macro time variable. And it will also be treated as a parameter inside your macro definition. So here you can use this EORCK in your program anywhere you want. And it is set to 1. Then end of the if condition. And you have 2 statements which doesn't come under the conditional block. Then it starts with the next if condition. So again, if EORCK. So we have set EORCK with 1. So if it equals to 1, then we are doing our operation LDCH equal to X ampersand EOR. So we have ampersand EOR is whatever parameter is passed here, it will be replaced in this argument. And you have another statement coming in the same if condition, end if. Then another condition, if condition you have, if ampersand max length, whatever value you have passed here, if that equals null. So only if this condition is true, this statement will be executed. If this condition is false, else whatever statement given under else will be executed. End if. Then again you have a statement which is a sequential set of instruction, which is not a conditional instruction. So these 3 statements will be executed no matter what. And then again you have another if condition. Again you are checking for ampersand EORCK. If it is equal to 1, then you are comparing the registers, and if it is equal, you are jumping to exit. If it is not equal, you'll continue. Then it is an end if, and you have the remaining statements coming in the program. So this is a simple structure with if, else, and end if statements. So the point to be noted here is when macro is invoked, depending upon the parameters being passed, every time the expansion may be different. It can be different depending upon the parameters being passed. Not all the statements coming in if condition will be expanded. Only if the condition becomes true, the statements written inside those conditions will be expanded. So to comprehend on this statement, let us look at some examples. Okay, so this is some screenshots which I have taken. Here you have some characters coming which you can ignore, and it's actually the comments that comes after your statements one by one. And similarly here also you have some comments coming. Please ignore those. Okay, we are only worried about the definition of the macro and the expansion and macro invocation. So this is your macro definition. Okay, rdbuf is a macro, and this is the entire macro which is given, and you have the definition starting from this point. Then you have the macro invocation. This is a point where you are invoking the macro, the parameters. Okay, these are the arguments. So here we have in device is f3, ampersand buff adr is buff, rec length is recl, and eor is 4, and max length is 2048. These are the values being passed as arguments. And you have the macro expansion. So let us look at the macro expansion, how the macro is expanded for such a case. The first statement is if ampersand EOR is not equal to null. So ampersand EOR, what is passed in ampersand EOR? The value passed is 4. So that is not null, right? So this becomes true. EOR CK will be set to 1. End of condition. So this is not expanded. Okay, EOR CK set statement is not expanded in the macro expansion. It will only set that variable with whatever value you have given here. It will just set that variable with the value. That's all. It is not expanded. And you have the next two statements, clear and x. So you have clear and x coming. Then the next statement is an if condition. So whether this has to be expanded depends upon the condition which you have given. So EOR CK, we have set EOR CK to 1. So if EOR CK equals to 1, yes, it is true. So the statements written inside the if condition will be expanded. So that is why you have this block being expanded here. And let us see how it is expanded. LDCH x ampersand EOR. What value have you passed in EOR? You have passed the value 4. So x with EOR is replaced with x4. And you have RMO statements also coming. That is the end of the if condition. Then again, you have the next if condition. Again, it will check for the condition. So what is the condition? Ampersand max length equals to null. If it is equal to null. So max length is not null. You can even give a null parameter. Okay, that I'll show you. You can pass a null value also, just separated with comma. But here it is not a null value. You have a value 2048. So this is false. So since it is false, it will execute this statement. So hash LDT, plus LDT, you have max length this statement. So you have this is a third block. So in the third block, you only have one statement. So max length is replaced with the value 2048, which is passed. Then you have the 3 sequential statements that comes. So here you can see that you have a loop variable which comes in your macro body, and it is being expanded to $AA. Unique label is generated. Then again, another if condition. You have the next if condition. So how does it work? So if this condition is EOR CK, again, if it is 1, Of course, in our case, EORCK is 1. It will compare so the statements that come under the block are these two statements. So this is the fourth block, and you have the two statements that comes inside that block. Then followed by whatever sequential statements you have. And one more point you can check, you can see here that you have the next label inside your macro body, which is $exit, which has been expanded to $AA exit. Okay. So just take a moment and try to understand how this is expanded. Now, let us look at the macro expansion for another example of a macro invocation. So look at this difference. Here you can see that in this macro invocation, you have a null parameter being passed, where EOR is null. EOR is passed as null. And according to this diagram, there is only one loop statement which is expanded. None of the others are getting expanded according to this example. So this is a next macro invocation. Okay, this is a next macro invocation. The first invocation was this one, and this is how the body looked like. And this is a next macro invocation. So let us try to understand this invocation also. So it starts with if condition. So if ampersand EOR is not equal to null. But here the fourth parameter is null. Null is passed, right? Null value is passed in this invocation. So this is not equal to null becomes false. Therefore, this will not be set. EORCK will not be set. Then you have the next two statements. So if it is not set, by default, the value is 0. I hope you remember. So you have the two statements expanded. Then again, if EORCK equal to null, it is, sorry, equal to 1. It is not equal to 1, right? So this entire body will not be expanded at all. Then again, if max length equal to null, but max length is not null. For max length, we have passed the value 80, right? We have passed the value 80. So you have this statement expanded, plus LDT ampersand max length. That is why you have the third. This is a third block which got expanded. This is the first block. This is the second block. The third block got expanded. Then after that, you have these three remaining statements coming, and you have the fourth block. So again, if the fourth block will be expanded only if EORCK is 1, but EORCK is not 1, it is 0. So this block is also not expanded, and you have the remaining statements expanded in the macro. The first this. And one more point here, you can note that, look at the variable, loop variable. It is now changed to AB loop, because this is the second time the macro is invoked. The first time when it was invoked, it was AA, and the second time now it became AB. So in both the places, wherever you have loop and exit coming, it has been generated as a unique label in such a way. So this is one more example. So you can pause the video here and try to understand on your own how this macro is expanded when you have the macro invoked as the values passed is F1, buffer, R length 4. Okay, and you don't have a last parameter is not there. So here you can see that nothing is passed for max length. So that means it's a null value. It's a null value. Okay, so consider that case and try to understand how macro is invoked. So I'm not explaining this one. You can just pause the video and try to understand on your own. So the testing of Boolean expression in if statement occurs at the time macros are expanded. Only when macro is expanded, the if statement is being tested. So by the time the program is assembled, all decisions will have been made. Then we have one more conditional macro expansion, which is a macro time looping statement, which is while end W. Okay, while end W. So this is like condition, loop condition. And you have, it's a little bit different, and we'll see how while and W is used. Then you have one more processor function, ampersand n items. So n items is used to count the number of members in an argument list. Macro allows you to define the argument or the parameter which is passed in a prototype as a list. You can pass a parameter as a list. It is possible. So the number of items in that list can be calculated with this function, ampersand n items. Say for example, if this parameter is being stored with the list 00, 03 and 04. This is an example for a list. In round brackets, the values are separated with comma. And this is a list. So ampersand n items, using ampersand n items, in bracket, you have to pass the name of the parameter. So if you calculate this statement, you will get the value as 3 because you have 3 items in the list. So if you use this statement in the program, you will get the value as 3. So this can be used to iterate. Okay, you can initially assign the value and you can keep iterating until all the values in the list are being processed. Fine. So as usual, let us look at an example which combines both while and W with argument list. So this is our example, and here you have the same macro rdbuff, and the parameters we have in device, buffer address, receive length and EOR. Okay, so look at the macro invocation. So this is a macro invocation. This is how you are invoking the macro. So first identify the various parts given in the slide. Okay, you have the macro definition. This is a macro definition. This is a macro invocation, and this is a macro expansion. This is how macro is getting expanded. So look at the macro invocation. You have F2 buffer length, and the last parameter is passed as a list. Rather than passing it as a single value, it is passed as a list. So ampersand EOR contains this list 00, 03 and 04. We have let us try to understand how your program works. So the first conditional statement we have, ampersand EORCT is set to a value. So to what value it is set? It is set as percentage n items bracket ampersand 3 EOR. So percentage n items is a function that gives you the number of elements within this list defined with the name EOR. So if EOR is defined as a list, the number of items in this list will be calculated using this function n items. So the EORCT will be set with the value 3 because in the list EOR we have 3 elements. Yes, we have 3 elements. Now, remember, this is not expanded. Okay, set statement is never expanded in the macro expansion. Now the next 2 statements we have clear, LDT, TD, JEQ, RD. All these are sequential statements coming. So till your RD, we don't have any confusion. And you can like have a look at the loop variable, which is expanded as $AA loop. So this is the first time macro is invoked. That's why you have AA. Now our invocation now changes when we have a while and W statement coming. So let us see how this is like a loop, how it has been expanded. Okay, so here we can see first the variable CTR is set to 1. So it's like a counter, it is set to 1. So while, this is a condition. Okay, so while ampersand CTR is less than or equal to ampersand EORCT. So what is EORCT? 3. The initial value of EORCT is 3. So while 1 is less than or equal to 3, that is the first condition. So this becomes true, right? This is the first iteration and this is true. So in the first iteration, you have a true condition coming. it will execute the next statement, compare. So this compare will be expanded. So how it is expanded? Ampersand X followed by, you have 4 zeros followed by, okay, this is a tricky part. Just try to understand how this is expanded. So you have ampersand EOR bracket ampersand CTR. So this you can understand it like an array. Okay, so this you can understand it like in the first iteration, you have ampersand EOR. Okay, ampersand EOR in bracket. What is the value of CTR? It is 1. So it's like indexing the array, indexing the list. So this 00 is at position 1, 03 is at position 2, and 04 is at position 3. That's how they have indexed the list. Normally, when you use an array, it is indexed with the starting position 0, right? But here they have assumed that the starting index is 1, and that is why it has been indexed starting from the location 1. So this is a replacement. Ampersand EOR bracket ampersand CTR. So since you have CTR is set as 1, the entire this value will be replaced with the first value in the list. So what is the first value in the list? 00. So when you expand the macro, that is replaced with your value x0, 4 zeros followed by 2 zeros. Then jump on equal to. So you are actually comparing here. Okay, the value in accumulator. You are setting some value in accumulator. In the program, if you want to follow, here some value is actually set to accumulator. You are reading this value from in device. So here you are performing a comparison operation, and if the comparison result of this comparison is true, you have to jump to exit. So that is also expanded and written here, right? That is also, this is the first loop, okay, not this one. I think I denoted the arrow to this COMP statement, but actually this is a first iteration. In the first iteration, it goes here, and then it sets the value. It's like you have to increment the counter variable. So the counter variable is set to CTR plus 1. Counter variable now becomes 2 in the second iteration, NW. So this is like a loop. This keeps on repeating until the condition becomes false. So this is the first iteration. Now in the second iteration, CTR is now 2. So 2 less than or equal to 3 is also true, right? And since it is true, it will again expand these two statements. So this is the second iteration. So in the second iteration, you have ampersand EOR in bracket. It is indexing the second element in the list. So the second element in the list is 03. That's how you have 4 zeros followed by 03 value. So I hope you are able to understand. Again, CTR is incremented. CTR becomes 3. So in the third, this is the second iteration. And in the third iteration, you have 3 less than or equal to 3. And you have ampersand EOR bracket 3. Okay, so I hope you are able to follow. In the third iteration, the third element from the list is retrieved, and it is being used, and that parameter is substituted in this comparison statement, and jump on equal to, you have the third iteration coming. And after this EOR, okay, CTR is incremented to 4, right? And in the fourth, so this is the third iteration, and now 4 less than or equal to 3 becomes false. So it will jump to your NW statement. That is the end of your conditional statements. And it continues with STCH, whatever you have in the macro. See? So this is the use, okay? They have shown you in this example, they have shown you the case where you can use while NW with a list. So this, in order to have a loop variable, like an iteration variable inside the condition to be used, that's why you have the list. In different ways, you can write the program. Just to make you understand both these concepts together, they have taken this example. So you can take a moment and try to understand what exactly happens in this program. So with that, we have learned about conditional macro expansion also. So just to recollect, just to have a quick recap, in conditional macro, what all did we learn? We learned mainly three constructs, four constructs altogether. That is if, else, indif we have seen, set we have seen, right? And various examples I have shown you. Then the next construct is while NW and a macro processor function percentage n items. All these comes under conditional macro expansion. Now, the last topic in machine independent feature is keyword macro parameters. Now, this is fairly a simple topic. The type of parameters that you can have in a prototype, macro prototype. There are basically three types of parameters which we can have. In fact, we have seen all these examples already in programs, in multiple programs that we have seen so far. So we are just trying to, understand what exactly they are. It's just a repetitive repetitive topic, and let's try to understand it theoretically. The first type of parameter is positional parameter. This is a basic parameter that we have seen. So the parameters in the macro prototype is associated with the arguments in macro invocation according to their position. When you have positional parameters, so what does this mean? This is your macro prototype. Okay, the header, whatever the prototype you have in your macro definition, that you call it as your macro prototype. And in your macro invocation, okay, this is your macro invocation, this you call it as argument. So normally the terms, the notation, okay, which is used is arguments you call when you have the list, when you are invoking a macro, whatever values you pass, those values are called as arguments, and whatever values you have in the prototype, you call it as parameters. Okay, this normally is termed as parameters and this is termed as arguments. So when you invoke a macro with positional parameters, each parameter is associated with the equivalent, each argument is associated with the equivalent parameter according to the position. So this comes in the first position, this comes in the second position, and this comes in the third position. So in the first parameter, wherever you have A1 coming, it is replaced with the argument data1. And the second position you have A2. So wherever you have A2, it will be replaced with the argument data2. And wherever you have A3, which comes in the third position, it will be replaced with the argument data3. It's simple, right? The parameters is associated according to the position. Such type you call it as positional parameters. So if an argument can be omitted, this also we have seen. If you want to omit an argument, you can provide a null argument. So for that, you just have to give 2 consecutive commas. That's all. In order to maintain a proper order. So in between, if you have a null parameter coming, you have to separate it with a comma. If it's the last parameter, it can be omitted. But here in between 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth parameter is a null value. So you have to separate it with comma. That is positional parameters. Now the last one, second one, keyword parameters. In keyword parameter, each argument value is written with the keyword that names the corresponding parameter. What does that mean? Each argument value is written with the keyword that names the corresponding parameter. That is, along with the parameter, you can provide the value when it is invoked. So the syntax, I'll show you the syntax. Here, the parameter, okay, this is a macro invocation. So in the macro invocation, you have to mention for which parameter you are passing the value. So for A1, you are passing the value data1. For A3, you are passing the value data3. And for A2, you are passing the value data2. So in this invocation itself, you can see that the arguments can appear in any order. In the previous case, the arguments are matched according to the position. But here you are directly giving the argument along with the parameter. So in the prototype, you have to give an equal to. The syntax is parameter followed by equal to. This denotes keyword parameters. So if you give a syntax of such sort, that means when you invoke the macro, the name of the macro is strg. When you invoke the macro, there you have to specify for which parameter what value you are passing. And it can be passed in any order. So automatically wherever you have A1, there the value data1, it will replace A1 with data1, and it will replace A3 with data3, and it will replace A2 with data2. So you should know the names of the parameters used in the macro. And the arguments which are passed is data1, data3, and data2. So that is your keyword parameters. And finally, there is default specification of parameters. That is, by default, you can specify a data, a value when you define a macro. So in the prototype, you can provide a default value. Look at this example. So here it's a combination of your keyword parameters with the default value. So A1, you are passing the value data1, and A2, you are passing the value data2. For A3, you have not passed anything. This is a macro invocation. For A1 and A2, you have passed two values. For A3, you haven't passed anything. So by default, we assume that there is a default parameter which is assigned in the macro prototype. So this is default. This is how you will specify a value by default. In the prototype, you have to mention that value. This is also possible. So when you invoke the macro, suppose if you provide like if you provide a value for ampersand A2 also. Okay, so when you invoke here, if I provide a statement like ampersand A3, okay, equal to say some value D4. So what happens when you are invoking, you are giving value for A3 also. So what happens? The value that you have passed will be given precedence. So this default value will not be taken. Whatever value you are passing now will be taken, will be passed as argument inside the body. So wherever you have A3, the current value which is passed will be used. D4 will be used. Data 3 will not be used. Okay, so this is how you provide default parameters along with the macro prototype. So with that, we have come to the end of machine independent macro processor features. Okay, thank you so much for watching.